Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and I'm here with my buddy and my partner, Miss Yvette Carnell, who's actually my favorite writer on the planet. How you doing today, Yvette?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing really good. We haven't had a chance to really talk that much lately because we're so busy doing stuff. You're doing your thing at BreakingBrown.com and just killing it. I mean, your commentary is extraordinary. In fact, I've concluded that you are too smart for TV. That's your curse. You are too
Is
smart.
that what it is?
Seriously, yes, yes. Because think about it. I mean, you would be so much better than some of these hosts they have on these networks, and you get a lot of media attention, and a lot of people pay attention to what you say because they know there's an authenticity there, there's a thoughtfulness there, there's a thoroughness there. But I figured it out. I couldn't understand. I was like, well, why wouldn't I mean, sure, I do my stuff or whatever, but I'm like, why don't these networks pick up somebody like Yvette more
They
often?
got the love.
And I figured it out. You've got a radical truthfulness about yourself that really makes you kind of beyond where liberals can really withstand. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
I think sometimes even a lot of liberals get caught up in a certain way of thinking, and when people really go outside the box, like when you really start telling the real truth, I think people start to really get confused by that. Like that. In fact, it reminds me of that guy, and I know I'm on a tangent here. We'll get to the issue, but it reminds me of that guy who went on MSNBC, and it was a journalist. You remember him? And he reported on some drone strikes that the government had done on a third world country that blew up like a mall or something, and
Mm.
how they got the government of that country to agree that it was their fault as opposed to the United States because they didn't want to
It was
build
like
that
Yemen or
anti-American.
something, wasn't
Yeah, it was Yemen. It was Yemen. Yes, yes. See, there you go. See, that shows how smart you are. You
it?
just know stuff like this. But yeah, and here I am. I'm like, yeah, the journalist who had been on the TV. No, but in all seriousness though, like I remember when that guy said that on MSNBC, and I thought, man, like, okay, liberals I think are cool with this stuff to a point, but when you start getting super real to the point where them troops might line up, but might be on your doorstep the next day, ready to take you away. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't know if they can really go there. And so anyway, that was my little tangent on how great Yvette Carnell is. But I got to ask you this.
Yay. No.
Yes, absolutely. I got to ask you this. I got to ask you about a man who is the reason that I'm here right now. I have to give him credit for this because he was the first black public intellectual I had ever seen in my life. After him, I saw Cornel West and Julianne Malveaux, but the first guy I ever saw on TV doing what we do is Michael Eric Dyson, and that was back in the 1990s. And I was so impressed with him. I think he's so sharp, and to this day, I'm proud to call him my friend. Now, usually when somebody starts off by talking about how much they love you, that means they're about to criticize you. So let me just go ahead and get started on this process. Dyson went pretty hard on Bill Cosby on MSNBC, and he said, "This is just one quote." He says, "The Cosby is the kind of man who will rape an entire black community, poor black people who are vulnerable before him, using his powerful foot to clump down on their necks." Um, Obviously, this upset Cosby and his attorneys. They issued a statement in response, which we'll get to in a minute. Um, but when I heard that remark, I said, "Whoa, that's some heavy stuff." How did you feel when you read what Dyson said?
Well, the one thing I will give Dyson in terms of Cosby is that he has been consistent. Dyson was one of the first people to come out and say, "Hey, this whole black respectability stuff is just BS, and it has no connection with the data." So I think Dyson does get some credit for saying, basically, "I told you about this guy a long time ago." The problem I have is that Dyson criticized Cornel West, Dr. Cornel West, a while ago for like his hyperbolic reaction to and criticisms of President Obama for like going too far in his rhetoric. Cornel West said that Obama was the blackface of imperialism, which is true, but you have to say sometimes it's sensationalist in the way that he approaches it. And so I think that this is what Dyson is doing. I don't have a problem with this criticism. I don't have a problem with that at all. But this raping of Black America, I just don't like the language, because he raped, probably, I think, he hasn't been proven guilty in a criminal court, but in the public court of opinion, he's toast. We're in excess of 20 women. So I do think you have to focus on those women that he allegedly raped. Now, with regards to everything else, I don't want to say he raped Black America. He he played into this narrative that the pathology of blackness, that there's something innately wrong with black people and we would be better if we would just get our shit together, and ignore the fact that, hey, we have been the most marginalized, we have been the most, victimized people in this country. And you can't just keep telling us to get our stuff together and not acknowledge that this country has done a lot of stuff to us that they never repaid us for.
And I think you're right. But one thing that's interesting too is that Cosby, in his critique, I had a big problem with it as well, and I still do. I mean, I think the pound cake speech could have been a lot better. We know that. But when I really thought about Cosby deeply in my heart of hearts, first thing I had to admit to myself is that we put it aside the rape stuff, which I think is very important.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to have the ability to talk about Cosby's, his, what he says in public and politically, as being separate from what somebody does personally. I mean, there's a whole lot of people who say things publicly, and we don't know what they're doing privately. When they shut the door to their bedroom or whatever. But in this case, it's out there, and it's hard to disconnect the two. But I find people almost, it almost seems in a borderline opportunistic way, are connecting the two. Like, I've hated that son of a bitch for the last 10 years. This is my chance to get him, right? And two people that have really just almost had a competition or just some sort of back and forth fight with Cosby are Dyson and Mark Lamont Hill. They're all in Philly, and I think that plays into it too. But they both really have always had major issues with Cosby, and even though I respect both of these guys, I consider them both to be my friends. I've never really understood that animosity. I said, wow, you guys are really obsessed with this man. Dyson wrote an entire book about Cosby, and I thought that was just strange to me. But when I think about Cosby, I think about individuals in my own family who have said, look, the key to black prosperity is not to simply wait for white people to stop being racist. That may not happen for another 200 years. One of the keys, not the only, but one of the keys, is for us to become stronger than the oppression with which we are faced, which might come back to critically analyzing some of the deformative cultural norms that have evolved as a result of this oppression, right? We know that the war on drugs broke down families, which has created a lot of ratchetness that we're kind of seeing in the hood and stuff like that. I mean, really what you might define as more formally just mental health issues. And I do believe that that's the case. And so the issue is, how exactly do you approach that? And I think that while we can differ in our opinion, I think that to say Cosby has raped the entire black community is a stretch, considering that this man gave $20 million to Spelman College. I mean, I don't know how many tens of thousands of black women have been able to go to college because Cosby single-handedly increased their endowment by 50%. I can't think of any other university where one person has increased that university's endowment by 20%. Not any major university, right? So, I mean, can we talk about Cosby as a potential rapist? Which, let's be real. I mean, 26 allegations. Those are the ones that were public. That tells me there may be others that didn't go public. That tells me that maybe this man has a problem. He wasn't convicted, no, but I mean, come on now, that's a lot of allegations. So maybe we can say, okay, you know what, you probably did these horrible things to people, and you should be held accountable for that. But at the same time, what you did that hurt people does not take away from the things you did that might have helped people. And if you're going to be completely honest, you have to talk about both sides of the equation. Am I crazy on this, Yvette, or what?
Well, not totally. Here's my thing. I can separate Cosby from Cosby the artist and Cosby the philanthropist. I can separate those two from Cosby the alleged rapist. I can separate a man from his art, because there are a lot of people who put out great art and who have when you look at who they are behind closed doors, you see some really nasty things. So I can separate those two things. I can still watch the Cosby Show. I was seeing that they were taking the Cosby Show off, and I think that's problematic because I know that Bill Cosby is not Heathcliff Huxtable, and I never looked at him as Heathcliff Huxtable. I have a daddy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need Bill Cosby never had to come into my home to play the role of my father. So I've always been curious as to how many of these people who are saying, "Oh my God, we gotta stand by Bill Cosby no matter what," didn't have dads in their lives. Like, this guy wasn't Heathcliff. I can look at Heathcliff right now and laugh and have fun and know that Bill Cosby helped create that character, create some great art in terms of what he did. But him as a human being, he's probably a guy who dropped some quaaludes in some women's drinks and put them to sleep and did some bad things. Now, in terms of where I can't separate it, this is where I have the problem. You can't morally lecture me. You can't morally lecture me when you are allegedly putting women to sleep and sexually abusing them. You can't have a moral conversation with me about what I should be doing morally in terms of my kids or single parenthood or anything else when that is your behavior behind closed doors. And when it comes out, it just exposes him as a fraud. Now, that doesn't mean that he wasn't a great philanthropist. That doesn't mean that a number of HBCUs, not even just Spelman, benefited from Bill Cosby and the money that he gave back. I think you have to be able to appreciate the good he did, but also hold him accountable and say, you can't drop quaaludes in people's drinks and just expect to get away with it for the rest of your life. We should be able to do those things. And really, in terms of what we talk about the black community, I tend to take issue with people who say basically, we have to, on our own, overcome white supremacy. Listen, we're about what, 13% of the population. When you look at the world, these are the people who run the world are not black people. So I think that anybody who says that we can go it alone and make that happen, that's problematic. I think you have to push for legislative solutions where you live. Now, I don't think that you should say, "Hey, I'm not going to do anything but push for legislation." No, you have to be an agent of change for yourself as well. But you can't look at this as, well, I'm just going to take my bag of stuff and I'm going to go off into this enclave of blackness and just give me my own stuff, and then we're just going to make this happen for ourselves. This has to be a merger of things. This has to be a process that incorporates business. It incorporates, social justice, and it has to incorporate some other things as well. But I have a problem with this idea that somehow black people can just, kind of like, it feels like magic to me when people say black people can just do this stuff for themselves and just make it happen. No, that's not how it works. White people didn't even do it for themselves. People forget that, black people were left out of the New Deal. The white immigrants who came to this country and who made it into the middle class, they made it into the middle class because of the New Deal, and black people were left out of the New Deal. So when you look at how people made it in this country, white people didn't even make it for themselves. So, but you want us to do that? Why? Because you've kicked us around. You just want us to kick us around some more and say, you can't have, you can't have what we gave white people, those Homestead Act, which gave a bunch of land to white people, for no cost or at low interest. We can't have that. That's reparations, and we can't have that. So I think you have to have an honest conversation about how people have made it in this country, an honest conversation about how systemic racism is still such a large detriment in this country. And the last thing I'll say is, I was reading something this morning, which from that was a black entrepreneur. I think his name is Tristan Rogers. I hope I'm right on that. But he was basically saying, it's racism for white people to hire people, especially in Silicon Valley, based on their network, because their network is 99% white. So when you look at racism, it's not just about some guy, calling somebody a nigger. This is not what we're talking about. This is the way people move, the way money moves, the way power moves. That's what racism is about, and we have to tackle that. We have to tackle that with people who are unintended racists who have the best of intentions, but you just hooked up your boy Ryan because Ryan, when a black dude over here is the most qualified guy for the job. So these are things that we have to deal with.
Well, I agree with you, and really, to go back to Cosby on this too. I think that where Cosby made his mistake in his critique is, I think that there was kind of an arrogance and a self righteousness that he carried with him, which might have driven his philanthropy. Right? I feel like I am the father of Black America. I'm some sort of king, some sort of leader who's kind of above the law, so to speak, in terms of accountability, which it might have also fueled his private behavior. I think I can drug women and do whatever I want to them and just chew them up, spit them out, and not be held accountable for that either. I think that that those chickens do come home to roost, because now you're seeing these enemies kind of jump all over Cosby because they've been waiting for him to be knocked off his high horse for a very long time. And so I think that Cosby, for the most part, I think if it had been if his critique had been structured a little better, I think it could have been a little more effective. For example, when we did our new paradigm forum last year, I remember sitting right next to Farrakhan, hearing him say the exact same stuff Cosby said in the pound cake speech. Basically, Farrakhan, in fact, he was worse. He said black people are dead. He said when a dead body is rotted and nobody wants to be around a dead body. He said you are dead, and and I don't think anybody else could have said that and got away with it. Uh, but he got away with this because people know that he's shown so much love, so much support, so much advocacy that people said, okay, you know what, you've earned the right to be critical, right? As Pastor Kevin Cosby in Kentucky always says, before you correct, you must connect, and I think that for Bill Cosby, there's no relation between the two, by the way. I think for Bill Cosby, maybe he felt that he had connected by giving millions of dollars of his money, by creating television content that was very family friendly, very inspirational to African Americans. Maybe he felt, okay, you know what? I've done so many things. I made so many investments in my community. Even Fat Albert. I went back and started watching Fat Albert episodes out of curiosity, just to see it through the eyes of a grown up as opposed to a kid. I loved it as a kid, but I saw the cartoon and I said, man, this guy really went out of his way to say, I'm gonna take this cartoon and I'm gonna make sure that the kids who watch it are better people because of it. There are these moral lessons, there are these educational lessons, all this stuff. And we're right. We know Cosby overall, at least in his personal life, was not always the most moral, ethical person. But sometimes what you say can be different from what you do, as long as you're telling me to do the right things, right? It reminds me of those rappers who are really intelligent people who make good investment decisions, but when they go in public, they say, go to the club, throw your money up, carry your gun, shoot a black man in the face, all this other ignorant stuff. So to me,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Right. So to me, what you are is not all nearly, sometimes it's not nearly as important as what you say you are or what image you present to the public, because that might be the one that's most influential. So maybe with Cosby, it's the reverse. In private, he's doing some stuff that doesn't make any sense, but at least in public, he was saying, look, eat your vegetables, go to school every day, work hard, be a good person, treat people with respect. You can't fight that. So I think that I'm gonna just go ahead and say that, and I hope Mike doesn't send me a bunch of nasty text messages like he did the last time we talked. By the way, they always complain about you, Yvette. Everybody gets mad about what I would just say. Well, Yvette says what she's gonna say, and I can't stop her because she would kill me too. But no, but in all seriousness, though, I will say that it is extreme overkill to simply say, "Oh, he's raping the entire black community." I can think of artists and entertainers who have, really hurt the black community. With the work they do, with the message. A Lil Wayne, somebody like that. I wouldn't have a problem with a comment about him, but I would just say that if you're going to talk about the allegations, talk about the allegations. If you're going to talk about the politics, talk about the politics. But understand that at least from a political standpoint, Bill Cosby does have at least some equity that has allowed him to put forth a challenge to the black community, because I don't think he hates black people. I just think he has an awkward way of loving us. He's that grandfather who doesn't understand what the hell you're thinking, but he's gonna tell you things because he really does want you to do better. And I do believe that from the bottom of my heart. Again, though, it was an awkward critique and to some extent a little bit disconnected. But then if you go to the other extreme, sometimes you'll hear, I remember when Dice and I did the debate at Brown, I kind of felt like, I love you, man, but we can't let just anything get a pass in our community. We got babies dying out here in the street because rappers are telling young black men to go kill each other. And of course you can't blame it all on rappers. Yeah, you got structural racism and all this other stuff. But I also know I don't want to hear a song that's repeated on the radio saying, go shoot another nigga in the head. That is not good for your mental health. Period. I don't give a damn what else has happened in the world. That is not good for your mental health. So we gotta have these honest conversations and fair conversations and stop believing that all the solutions lie in one space or the other. That's all I have to say. I'll let you get the last word, Yvette.
Well, I would just say in terms of Cosby, I can separate a person from their philanthropy and from their art, and so I can applaud him on one level, and then I can look at him on another level and say that you are a predator, as far as I'm concerned. Insofar as hip hop and what we should tell black people, the thing that I always tell people about hip hop is that hip hop and insofar as drug dealing and all of that stuff goes, these things are symptoms of a problem. Hip hop is not the problem. Hip hop is the symptom of a problem. You know, the problem that we have in Black America is that we really don't have access to capital, whether that's capital as in a job or whether that's capital as in access to money to start a business, whether that's venture capital. You know, in Silicon Valley, they have what they call pattern matching. Everybody's looking for the next Zuckerberg, which is a white boy with a hoodie. Nobody's looking for, you know, a black woman. Nobody's looking for a black man. You know, you don't match the pattern of what they're trying to, of what they believe a successful entrepreneur is. And I think there are some people out there trying to change that, and that's great. But what I'm saying is that if you, if you stop this, if white people increase access to capital for black people, and black people have the same access to capital as white people do, you know, and work on discrimination, if you end white supremacy, I think you'll see the majority of the problems that we have in the black community just look as if they're magically fixed. So unless white people are willing to deal with that, they can't deal with me on that level. And that same thing goes for Bill Cosby. The problem is that, you know, we look at the symptoms and say, oh my God, look at this, look at these black women without, you know, who are having babies without daddies. Well, there are black women who are having babies without fathers, but it's not, you know, it's not, that number has dropped in the last 2 decades or so. That number has gone down, you know, so, you know, what I want to do in this conversation is have a data-driven conversation. Let's look at the data. Let's look at the data. It's the same way. It's the same way that you can have police officers talk about, oh, we're protecting you out in the community, we're serving you, and we're putting our lives at risk. You know, police officers have the lowest number of being killed on duty in 50 years. This is the lowest that they've had. They're safer now than they've been in the last 50 years. But people are allowed to say this and present this as the problem. This is not the problem. This is a symptom of a problem that exists in America. And it's a symptom of us not having access to capital. Hey, if I had access to capital, maybe I could start, or somebody who's into hip hop could start a hip hop company, you know, and promote artists who actually are conscious artists. How about that? But we don't have that capital. So it goes to the big labels, and the big labels don't want to promote hip hop artists who are conscious artists, hip hop artists who talk about something other than, you know, shaking your butt or you know, selling drugs. So they won't promote it. So we don't have the capital to promote what is really popular in America. So hey, you know, there we go. I think you really have to look at that. And one last word on Farrakhan. I know I'm going to get a lot of criticism for this, but I'm going to say it anyway because I just need to say it. I don't think Farrakhan gets nearly enough criticism in the black community for the way in which he pathologizes black people. Farrakhan says stuff that if Bill O'Reilly said it, he would be castigated. I heard Farrakhan say one time that the problem is black people after slavery, whatever, didn't know how to be free, and we should be taken to Africa somewhere and taught how to be human beings or whatever. And that was the most monstrous thing I have ever heard, as if there's something innately different about us, or weak, or you know, there's something about us that's just not quite right that needs fixing. No, what was wrong with us is that we were enslaved, and then there was Jim Crow, and then there was racism, and then we couldn't vote. There was a lot of things wrong, but they weren't wrong with us. They were wrong with the white people who decided to put us in chains. So I mean, I just want to put that out there.
Okay. Well, you know, as I always say, you know, I respect your opinion, and what I love about talking to you is that, you know, you will always. People don't I don't know if people know, but you and I don't agree on a lot of stuff. But I
Mm-hmm.
think one thing that we always agree on is the right for free expression and intelligent discourse, and we learn from each other, and that's what I think makes us a great partnership. So I appreciate your comments, Yvette. I think that there's something worth thinking about, and I know I'm going to think about them. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
All right, and everybody, thank you for checking us out at Your Black World. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins, and until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.